out on the Royal Enfield. So you should be able to hear me alright. Just going to enjoy a ride in the countryside. So the bike's currently in its running in phase, which lasts I think 500 miles, 800 kilometers, and I'm trying to keep it to 20 miles an hour in second, 30 miles an hour in third, 40 miles an hour in fourth, and then about 55, 60 in fifth as the max speed, which is roughly in line with what the manual states as you run in the Meteor 350. But I'm trying to rack up the miles on the bike so that I can actually use the engine a bit more fully, use all of those 21 cc's. A bit busy today, isn't it? Off we go. So something else I've noticed about the bike is the paddle mechanism for changing gear. Actually quite good when you get used to it. So instead of having one gear lever, you've got two, and you can change up by shifting with your heel, which works quite well. I quite like it now, I'm used to it. Took a little bit of time to get used to that thing though. So I've had the bike about a week now, maybe a bit less actually. I think it was about 4 or 5 days. And I've done 141 miles, which is quite a miracle considering the weather in the winter in the UK. But days like this, I'm just enjoying the opportunity to get the bike out, run it in a little bit, and look forward to covering 500 enjoyable miles. So a little bit about the history of me and this Meteor 350 Supernova. I ordered the bike back in March 2021, and there was several promises that the bike will be delivered in a few weeks, and time just dragged on and on and on, and I missed the summer, as eventually the bike took 7 months to get here, so I missed the whole summer's worth of riding, which is a bit frustrating. But when the bike came eventually, I obviously was glad I waited. During that time I had the option to swap for the Supernova, well, a different bike, maybe a Stella, or even a Supernova in blue. But I hung on for the Supernova in brown. I wanted that colour, it was the one for me. And boy, I'm glad I did. It's absolutely fantastic looking thing. It looks so much more premium than other bikes in this segment for this price bracket. This is a bike that costs under £4,000, even in, as they would say, top spec trim, which is the Supernova. Look how fun this bike is, just to pilot around the countryside roads. Sweet round this bend, bit of gas. So no one's ever going to accuse the Meteor or Royal Enfield for that matter of being a quick bike, but it's just so satisfying to ride. To sit here in a nice comfy position, your arms aren't too stretched out, your back's not hunched over and in agony like it would be on a sports bike, and you just sort of plod along with that very pleasing flop 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 noise in the background. You can see on the fuel that I've done 143 miles and my fuel gauge is indicating half a tank's been used. So it gives you the idea of the range of this thing. I think with some cruising you might be able to get this bike up to 300 miles in a full tank, which would be absolutely incredible really. Obviously I'm changing down to go up this hill, partly because I'm not able to rev the bike out fully, so I need to be in the right gear at this time. And also it's not that powerful, so let's not convince ourselves that Royal Enfield make high performance bikes. They don't, and anyone who buys one needs to accept that fact. So this bike's perfect for just pottering around town. We went on a little bit of a group ride yesterday with my dad and myself, just to, well, it was a group of two, still a group I suppose, just to see what the bike's like in comparison to the Mutt 250, so similar outputs in bhp. I think this is a little bit more torquey than that bike, and the Mutt's a lot lighter and this is a bit heavier, more stable. My dad reckons it inspires a little bit more confidence in the corners, does the Royal Enfield. More of a traditional cruiser as opposed to a sort of custom retro bike. So here we are, entering the historic town of Ledbury, going through the town centre. And this is what this bike's just made to do, just plod along. Nice and busy in town today. What an amazing little bike. I keep saying little bike, it's actually not that little. About 191 kg. So if I lift the visor up, hear what this bike sounds like. So we'll now take the road from Ledbury back to Malvern and then all the way trundling back to Worcester. Listen to that hum of the engine, it's really satisfying actually. So why do I go for the Meteor and not at Royal Enfield's other bikes on the range? So I could have gone for the Interceptor. For me that bike doesn't quite look as special. Yes, it is a 650, so it's got the parallel twin engine, a bit more horsepower, and you can ride it a little bit faster, I would say, more enthusiastically maybe. But I've got a track bike, so I don't really want something else to compete in that category. Yeah, the Interceptor is great, but I wanted something that's unapologetically Royal Enfield, and a single just seems to fit that bill better than the twin and the Interceptor. I also don't like the Interceptor's looks quite as much. It's still a really nice bike, and obviously it's more expensive by about 50%, and you're not really getting blistering performance or anything like that. So what do you really get on the Interceptor that's worth the extra money? I don't really know the answer to that is. Then of course could have gone for the Himalayan. Himalayan's more of a utilitarian looking bike. It's very similar in price to the Meteor, so that could have been an option. It's also got the single cylinder, a little bit bigger capacity. That was 411 cc's compared to the 349 of the Meteor. And then of course you've got the Bullet, which is very retro looking, 500 cc. And also I think the Continental GT, which is, I think it's similar to the Interceptor, just a different style really, slightly more premium maybe. But then the Meteor was a brand new bike which I liked, it's single which I liked. It's got the Tripper navigation system, which is a new innovation that they've added to Royal Enfield bikes, so that was quite cool. and also the style of the thing. It was just amazing to look at. So the options were, I've said this many times before on the channel, but the options were the Fireball, which came in red, yellow, gas tank and matching rim tape. The Royal Enfield logo was a sticker, no screen, no backrest, black seats, black exhaust. So quite a different visual proposition. Very much sort of more, I guess more youthful bike, kind of a more basic bike, but not very much cheaper than the bike we're sitting on today. Then you have the Stella, where you've got a small screen, I think, and no backrest, I think, on the Stella. Stella comes in red, blue, or all in black. And that also has chrome, I think, on the exhaust. Finally, you have the Supernova, which is the top tier Royal Enfield Meteor 350. You've got the screen, which you can see ahead of me. I've got chrome exhaust, two-tone paint job, which is either brown or blue. And the brown is absolutely stunning. Both brown and blue come with a black lower half of the gas tank, and they've also got the various side panels that are colour coded as well, which is really nice. The mirrors are chrome as opposed to black, and they've got the spokes and the wheels of polished face. Indicators are chrome. Yeah, everything about it really is just a little bit more premium, I think. Also, the passenger or pillion rider has a backrest, which is nice, and you've got this comfortable brown leather touring seat. I didn't quite like the look of the blue, handy light blue on brown. Something about it just didn't quite work, whereas it all ties in with the theme if you've got brown and black gas tank. It's a lovely metallic brown colour. Some say bronze actually, but I'm going to go with brown for now. And then you've got the brown leather seat, or leather effect, I'm not sure if it actually is leather. So yeah, that's why I went for the Supernova, and boy was it worth the wait. Just encourages you to do a totally different level of riding compared to a sports bike. I mean, look, we have this corner coming up. I can still throw the bike around a little bit, have some fun. Obviously within the constraints of me running the bike in, but it's nothing like a sports bike. Totally different. And I'm kind of glad I've made the transition now. I'll keep my track bike for blasting around in a safe environment, but I'm glad now on the road, so I've got a bike which doesn't encourage you or indeed thank you for hammering it. Change down a little bit here. I know this is quite tight. So obviously I've got a single, I think it's a 300mm disc up front, might be a 320. People have complained a little bit about that, but for me, I mean, if I apply the brakes, it's going to provide adequate stopping power for the output of the engine. You know, you shouldn't really be thrashing this bike. This is not what it's designed for. It's designed to take you back to basics of motorcycling. You've got an amazing looking machine, but not very much money. It's really rewarding to ride. And lets you take in everything around you. It's pretty cool, actually. So I've got to grips a little bit more with the dials up front. You've got the speedo, obviously analog mainly, digital fuel gauge, time, and you've got the odometer, so my bike's coming up to 150 miles ridden. It's got a gear indicator, which is kind of nice. I guess with a lower output machine kind of helps know what gear you're in, so you're not caught out with flat spots and no torque. And there's this little button up here called info. Just watch out, because lots of parked cars on this road. Yeah, there's a little button up here on the left hand control stalk, and if you press that you can cycle through trips and odometer. if you want to reset any of the trip meters, then you hold that button down when you turn the ignition on. Something I had to find out through looking at a fellow YouTuber's video. One thing I should mention as well, which is a little bit annoying so far, is the suspension doesn't seem quite as soft as maybe on the Interceptor, for example. It doesn't quite soak up bumps as nice. I think that has something to do with the cheap tyres they've got on here. So obviously the tyres are non-branded, or some Indian brand that people in the UK probably haven't heard of. I mean, what are you going to do about that? If you're going to have non-performance tyres on any bike, probably a cruiser style bike, the one to go for. They've got a very low price point. I mean, this bike's 3,900 quid, brand new, with warranty and years road fund license and all that jazz. But are you going to expect everything to be premium? You know, we're going to have Continentals on this bike? Probably not. So those tyres, I think, contribute a little bit to the hard ride that I've noticed with the bike. I wish it was a little bit softer. I might have a go at adjusting the rear shocks just to put them in maximum comfort mode. I'd like a little bit more of a softer ride on my delicate rear end. There you go, over 150 miles, just 350 to go. Until I can open the bike up a little bit more. One of the things that I do like about the bike, obviously, is the colour scheme, the riding position. The screen, I think, is a great addition. It makes it look a lot more grown up. Separates it from some of the cheaper Chinese retro looking bikes out there. And on that note, actually, I think the Meteor looks more premium, and it's got a higher build quality finish than most of its rivals in that price bracket, shall we say. It's more akin, you know, people probably slate me for saying this, but I think it's up there with the quality of Triumphs and BMW 90s and that kind of retro looking bike with premium parts. And people will probably slate me for saying that, but it's just, I feel it's closer to those bikes than it is to Bullets and Mutts and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's what I think, you know. So, you know, I that's probably wildly, you know, inflammatory statements. Those bikes that cost 3 or 4 times as much money, but you know, this bike's got a lot of quality on it. As far as getting one, well, I had to wait 7 or 8 months for mine to be delivered. Obviously, they mentioned there was loads of things like COVID in India, even the Evergreen container ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, even that apparently added to the delay. Whether that's true or not, I just think there's probably a poor performance by the importer MotoGP. Obviously the dealers want to get bikes off the shelf and sold, so they're not going to be holding things up if they can help it. So if you want to buy one, well, I guess put your name down, pay the small deposit, and get yourself on the waiting list. It's a great bike, and it's, you know, it's not for much money. I would thoroughly recommend it. Honestly, it's really great. It's super enjoyable. Everyone I've showed so far likes it. Oh, that's a drain there. Just shook me a little bit. So what am I going to do with this bike? Well, over the winter, I think I'm going to try and ride it as much as possible. Whether or not I ride it in the rain and bad weather, that's still up for debate, really. I'm not sure I quite want to get all the chrome and everything like that discoloured, which, you know, it is a fairly inexpensive bike. Who knows how long the bright work and the trim pieces will last under the elements. I'm sure they'll discolour a little bit. So far I'm going to make the most of it, ride it as much as I can on dry days, and it may come to it that I just use this bike for everything, all weather, and really try and get the most out of it. I can't wait until spring though, until the weather gets improved and we're able to take this bike out in the sun and the warm, and go to bike meets and stuff like that, and see what thoughts people have on the bike. I'm sure we'll get a good reception. Where's he going? Let's see if we can pull off in a second. Yeah, I just did. Get a look in the old shop window. Looking quality. Oh, one thing which it does bug me a little bit, I haven't been able to find the Royal Enfield app to sync with the Tripper navigation system yet. So obviously I've got the correct time set on here using the little button, but I haven't got the correct time set on the Tripper. So that's something I need to look into. I've looked for the app in Google App Store because I've got a Samsung phone. Can't find it, which is quite frustrating. So maybe it's just that people who don't have Royal Enfield don't download the app, and therefore it hasn't got that many downloads, and so it's not promoted on the Google Play Store. But I need to have a dig around and find it, see if it is there, so I can start using the Tripper, or at least set the time correctly on the Tripper. One thing I should mention about slow speed, the turning circle on this bike's really, really great. I mean, obviously for those of you who've had cruiser bikes before, probably nothing to write home about, but if you've had a sports bike, it kind of like turns this much, and that much, whereas this beast, I can really angle all the way around if I want to do manoeuvres, or even if I'm just using the bike, without the engine running and manoeuvring it around the garden. So much easier. Quick shoulder check. Nice 2CV in burgundy and black. He was having a look at the Royal Enfield. He wasn't looking at the Royal Enfield, he almost pulled out in front of me. Great thing about being on a bike, you can squeeze into spots that would otherwise be a little bit inaccessible for a car. You're not quite in as much danger, shall I say. You can fit through smaller gaps. So I feel pretty privileged to be riding a Meteor and to be riding a Supernova as well, the top spec, which I had to wait longer for. I feel, like it's worth the wait, and yeah, like I say, privileged to be in a position to be able to have two bikes, one of which is now a full track bike, and this one obviously for riding on the road. I've kind of made the decision, and I'm not saying I won't have a sports bike for the road again, but the road is just full of obstacles and street furniture, silly drivers essentially who are gonna, not look out for you if you don't look out for them actively. Tractors, animals crossing the road, oil, whatever it might be, ice, that kind of thing. It just makes riding on the edge of your ability a little bit more dangerous on the road. Yeah, okay, it is fun. But I've decided to go more for a cruiser style bike and just enjoy plodding about for a while rather than having the temptation to thrash it on the road. I'll keep that for the track. People do say that track days and even if you eventually upgrade your bike enough and upgrade your skill level enough so that you become a bit of a track day racer, go up through the groups. They do say that ruins road riding for you. Yeah, not to say that I would never get a 600 ZX6R or something like that one day to ride on the road, but it's just too dangerous. There's too much stuff going on that could potentially be harmful for you, hazardous. If you ride the bike like it's meant to be ridden, obviously you can buy a S1000RR and just show off. And I suspect most people who have litre bikes do that. I mean, I don't go around looking at people's rear tyres to check their lean angle and all the rest of it, like some riders do. You know, it's up to them what they buy the bike for. But I probably hazard a guess that most people don't thrash these sports bikes on the road. And if they do, then that's kind of putting other people at risk anyway. So yeah, that's my decision really for now. One thing I am a little bit concerned about is scraping either the pegs or the exhaust. Obviously because my tendency is to lean a little bit more than perhaps the average rider when I come around bends. I find that quite a hard habit to break. So I'm taking it really easy, partly because I'm running in the bike, but also because I'm not quite sure how much you can lean one of these cruiser style bikes. So I haven't really got that much wind buffeting. Obviously I'm not opening the bike up, I'm only going 50s, maybe 60 miles an hour at the most. But this fairly sizable touring screen does a great job. Everything's nice and autumnal at the moment, isn't it? I mean, UK does look nice. I mean, if it was bright sunshine, that would be a little bit better. Just drop down a bit of gears. But even on a sort of overcast day, the colours of the trees are something to behold. So look at me at this junction, totally flat-footing the bike, which I guess is nice to have. Off we go.